Hello, world, and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Little Bit Different podcast. I'm your host, Cory Sterling. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so excited for this incredible journey that we're going to go on together. And it brings me a great pleasure to share with you something a little bit different. And why a little bit different? Why should it be different? I originally, when I started recording these podcasts, I had the idea that I had for the podcast was the title, The Cory Sterling Podcast. I was like, this is obvious. I'm talking about my life. I'm talking about who I am and what I've done and my different experiences and what I've learned. So it only makes sense that it would be called The Cory Sterling Podcast. And then I was thinking that it probably has to be about something a little bit more. It has to be bigger. There has to be a bigger reach. There has to be a deeper intention. And the point was never just, hey, this is what happened in my life, but more, this is what I've learned from what's happened in my life, because my life is different. The choices that I've made have been different decisions, which have led to different outcomes. And I'm so excited to share all of that with you. But what I realized when going through the episodes that I had recorded, and I'd recorded 7 episodes before I decided to pivot. And it's fun because it's practice and this really lights me up and energizes me. What I realized is in each episode, I was talking about how I have made different decisions in my life that led to an outcome that I had wanted, or that I decided to do things in a different way than everyone was doing them. And that's when it hit me. I was like, okay, well, this is a little bit different. And then I started thinking a little bit more about my life. I was like, well, most of the things that I do are a little bit different. And the places I go and the way that I interact with people and how I live and how I support myself and how I practice health and mindfulness, all of this is a little bit different. I think I'm a little bit different. And not only am I a little bit different, but I'm probably going to be attracting people who are going to listen to this who are also a little bit different. So we're all a little bit different together. And it just felt like such a perfect fit to use difference and individuality and uniqueness as a platform to share my messages and my experiences and my stories and my lessons and what I've learned. So it's really such a massive pleasure for me to be able to do this. And the intention of this first episode is to talk a little bit about some of the different decisions I've made that have led to me having a different life. And the hope is that I'm able to provide some form of permission. I want to provide permission to you, the listener or the viewer, who maybe wants to make that decision that everyone else is telling them they shouldn't make, but deep down inside feels right for you. I want you to take that different decision. If I want you to feel confident and secure that if you're doing something different that is aligned with who you want to be and who you believe in, the type of life that you believe that you want to have, I want you to have the confidence to make that decision. And so in the spirit of camaraderie and unification, I want all of us different people to be together. And I want you to know that it's okay to be different, because a lot of the times what we try to do is we try to blend in, we try to do the thing that we're supposed to do the thing that we should be doing in life. And in my experiences, anytime I've done what I should be doing, it did not result in something positive or enjoyable or beneficial. But anytime that I made a decision that was different, that felt aligned or that felt correct, it produced the most magical results that took me one step further down living my dream life and the things that I wanted to do. And so the format for this episode, I'm going to talk about a couple of very, very basic points about living differently, because we got to know what you're getting into. And luckily for you, I've already taken out the machete and I've bushwhacked a trail of difference in so many different areas of my life so that you don't have to. You can just hop on the trail and trek on behind me. So there's a couple of sort of ground rules or points that I think are really, really important to know about living differently. And then I'm going to open up and share a little bit about different decisions that I've made in my life, which have produced this different life, which I have. And the first thing that I hope you approve of the format. If not, It's happening. It's going to happen either way. So that's what's up. And I think the first and most important point, and I'll probably mention this any time that I'm speaking or talking about anything, is that I'm going to be sharing about my experiences and what's different for me. And you are in a different part of the world. You were born into a different family. You were born into a different culture. You were born into a completely different life story and paradigm than I was. So I'm going to talk about the decisions that I make that are different for me, but you're going to have your own version of different. And that's perfect. And everyone has their own version of different. And that's the way that it should be. That's the way that it is. So I just want everyone to know that there are certain things that I'll always talk about, like working online is something that I'll always talk about. Traveling is something that I'll always talk about. Health and fitness will find its way into most of the conversations that I have. And so these are the arenas or the avenues or the tools or the vehicles where I have found an expression of difference. And for you, it might be completely different. And it's cool. So I guess the first point that I just want to say as a ground rule is keep an open mind and remember that just because I made a different decision in one area, you definitely don't have to. You're not supposed to. You're supposed to understand your own life and what are the things that are most important to you and what are your dreams and what do they look like. And then within that framework, then you're going to know what different decisions you have to make for yourself. So are we cool on that? Yeah, I feel like I'm doing like the thumbs up thing in that Apple, now whatever the AI firework is coming up. I'm like, what is this? Okay, perfect. So that's the first point, that everyone's having their own experience and what's different for me may not be different for you, but you have to follow your own compass. So like visualize yourself like reaching into your chest, right? Around your heart, visualize a compass, pull that compass out, sort of like dust it off and become aware for yourself of what it looks like for you to make different decisions and what that means to you. The second point that I want to make about living different and making different decisions in different areas of your life. You're most likely going to have to get used to not having support or belief or understanding from other people in the decisions that you're making when you're making different decisions. Okay? So I've been there. I'm living it. I live it every single day where people don't understand why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. It doesn't make sense to them because they're doing the thing that they should be doing or they're doing the normal thing. And when I tell them about what I'm doing, it doesn't land. It just doesn't make sense to them. And the most important thing is that it doesn't have to. Okay? Because what's happening is you're living your life purpose. You're living your dream. And so it only has to make sense and feel good for you. The different decisions that you're making only have to make sense and feel good for you. And if you're going to be looking for external support from other people to say to you, yeah, that's a really, really good idea to do something completely different, that's not going to happen. And in all of the best decisions that I've made in my life for myself, it never happened that someone said, yeah, Cory, that's a really good idea. That's totally going to work. And I just want you to know that. And I want you to remember that. So what I'm saying is, I don't know the specifics of what different decision you want to make or what different lifestyle or approach or career or relationship or whatever it is that you want. But just remember, it doesn't matter what I think. And it doesn't really matter what other people think. Of course, you have friends who you love. You have family who you love. And these people love you and they support you and they want the best for you. But the most important thing to remember is that a different idea by its very nature, innately, will be something that brings discomfort and an experience that you have not yet had. And it will likely put you outside of your comfort zone, which is a foreign place for human beings to be. We are wired for comfort. We are wired for familiarity. The way that our brains work is we're seeking comfort. We're trying to avoid danger by any means. So when we step into that space, there's going to be something that comes up that feels strange, that feels different. And especially if you're going to be asking other people what they think about it, they're not going to align with you. They're not going to agree with you. And so you just have to be mindful of that and aware of that. And I'll just share a really, really quick story that I have. The way that the one of the biggest areas of my life where I'm different and where I've been different is in my career. So I started an online law firm in 2016 called Counsel. And I started this business off the heels of 2 years working in different law firms and being completely miserable, being broken inside, my soul crushed. I was just like, what is the deal? I worked so hard in law school. I worked so hard to become a professional, and I have so many skills. I can help so many people. I can do so much. Why are these jobs so terrible, and why do I hate them so much? And I went to a self-help seminar called Landmark, which was one of the turning points in my life. I have a couple of turning points in my life. Going to Landmark, the Landmark Forum was one of them. And I stood up in front of a group. When we started, they were like, okay, it's a good idea if everyone comes into this weekend with, write down your top 3 intentions of the 3 different areas of your life that you want to improve. And I've listened to enough self-help and spiritual leaders to know that it's always the same thing. It's always money, career, love, personal relationships, spirituality. Like, it's always going to be one of those buckets. For me, I only spoke at the beginning of the weekend because even though I can be very gregarious and outgoing, also I'm very introverted and pensive, and sometimes I need to keep my space to know what's going on. So I'm at the seminar and they just said, does anybody want to come up and share their intention? And I went up in front of the group, and I always close my eyes when I share this story, just because I remember it so well. I was standing in front of this group of 300 people, and I said, I'm a lawyer, and I cannot see in any way how I'm going to enjoy my career. And when I think about what my career prospects are, I feel like I'm walking in an office down a very long hallway with super bright fluorescent lights, and I have cinder blocks on my feet, and I'm just trudging heavily, wearing a suit down this never-ending hallway with bright lights, and it feels heavy and depressing. And then I opened my eyes, and I was standing in front of all of these people. And I don't know where that came from with me, but that's how I felt about my career. And so I came to the point where I was ready to leave law. And I met with one of my mentors, Mike Stevens, who's a really, really special person to me. And he was my mentor when I was working at this big law firm, and he was also my buddy. And I told him how I felt. And I was like, hey, Mike, I'm out. I'm done. I don't see how this can happen. I don't see what's possible for me. And he told me 2 things. He's like, Cory, go home and dream it up. If you could have anything that you wanted, if you could choose for your career, whether it's being a lawyer or not, but if you could choose for your career to be anything, and the sky's the limit, get super creative, do whatever you want, what would it look like? That was the first thing he said to me. And I was like, okay, cool. The second thing he said to me is, whatever it is that you choose, know that you already have everything inside of you to make it happen. You're smart enough, you're talented enough, you're hardworking enough, you're not missing anything. There's 0.0% of you that is incomplete. Decide what would really light you up and what would make everything worthwhile, and then know that you have everything inside of you to do it. So I said, thank you. I went. I probably took 2 weeks. I was like hiking in the forest in Vancouver. I was living in British Columbia at the time. And I came back to him and I was like, first things first, I'm traveling. I don't care. Traveling is my biggest passion in life. It's the thing that I love the most. So I'm going to be traveling while I do this. And secondly, I'm only working with awesome people who build communities that make the world healthier. And what that more specifically looked like to me was, at the time, it was starting with yoga studios, Pilates studios, gyms, personal trainers. At the time, I was a group fitness trainer, and I was just becoming a yoga teacher, and a spin instructor. So I was working at gyms and different studios, and that was part of my life, and I loved doing it. And I was like, okay, I'm working with awesome people, and I'm traveling. And he was like, perfect. give it a try, give yourself a runway. And if you don't make it after that runway and you feel like it's not advisable or helpful for you to continue, you can always come back and be miserable in an office job. And I was like, thank you. Thank you very much. That's actually exactly what I needed to hear. So as I came up with this idea, it started building momentum. I was getting interested and excited about it. And at the time, I was on a soccer team with a group of lawyers. And I shared my idea with them. I was like, hey guys, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to work online and I'm going to travel the world. The first ticket I bought was a ticket to India to live in an ashram to do my formal yoga teacher training. And I'm going to work with yoga studios and small and boutique fitness business owners. And I was like standing there nodding. I was like waiting for them to be like, wow, Cory, you're amazing. This is so great. It's going to work. You're such a genius. Wow. And all I got was blank faces, nods, and everyone's like, it'll never work. It will never work. Firstly, you can't be a lawyer and work online. Secondly, yogis don't have money, hippies don't have money, no one can pay. How are they going to pay? All of the reasons why not. And I remember leaving that night and I wasn't even dejected. And I just remember feeling inside of myself, I see something that they don't see. And that's all that matters. All that matters is that I see it. All that matters is that it feels right to me. So I ended up booking a one-way ticket to Copenhagen, and then on from Copenhagen, I went to the Middle East, and then I flew to Delhi, and then I went to Nasik, where at Yoga Vidya Gurukul is the name of the ashram where I lived, to do my yoga teacher training. When I got on that flight from Toronto to Copenhagen, I had $3,000 Canadian saved in the bank. This was in September 2017. And I was like, okay, cool. This is my leap of faith. This is my moment. I'm ready to jump. I'm ready to do it. In the event that I run out of the money and, firstly, if I run out of money, I'm in India, which is a cheap place, so I can stay a little bit longer. If it doesn't work out, I'll just come back. And that was September 2017. Now it's December 2023. I'm living in Brazil on a beach town, kite surfing every day and working online. And during that time, I've made millions of dollars. And I have traveled the world many, many times over. And I've learned how to properly build a business online. And in my respective niche of being a lawyer for yoga studios and Pilates studios and health coaches and boutique fitness studio owners, I'm probably a leader. It's uncomfortable for me to say those things, but there really is not another law firm out there doing what it is that we do. We have 355 five-star Google reviews. From all the clients that we've worked with, we've only gotten 5-star reviews. And I built all of that from that conversation with Mike after the time with the lawyers at the soccer practice where no one told me it would work, for me going with $3,000 in the bank to now being living in financial abundance in a completely different picture. And I just share that story because A, this is what happened to me. B, it was what I wanted to do. I was really, really clear on what made sense to me and what it looked like and how I wanted to live. And C, no one believed in me. And D, it's completely different. It's in 2016, being a lawyer who worked online was not a thing. Now there's more and more lawyers who are doing it, but it satisfies all of the criteria. And it's one area of my life where I've done something different, where I think it's beneficial for me to share a little bit of that story. And within that, there are so many sub-stories, and that's part of what we're going to dive into over the course of this podcast and the different topics that I speak about and the things that make sense for me being different. So that sort of encapsulates that point of don't expect other people to understand your dream, and don't wait for other people to approve of what it is that you want to do. If the decision you're making is different, because it's not going to register with them. It won't. But again, it's not supposed to, because it's your dream, it's your vision, it's the different life that you want to have, it's the different decision that you want to make, and that's why you just have to listen to yourself about it. Is it a little bit scary? Yeah, but the awesome thing about being different is that when you are different in one area of your life and you see the success and you realize like, oh, all it required was for me to take this risk or take this chance and it worked out. And then it's like, it just lets you be different in all other areas of your life. And so the last thing before I dive into some more specifics, in an attempt to introduce myself and for us to get to know each other, I just want to say that one of the biggest intentions of this podcast is to give you permission to be different. Because again, there are so many voices out there that are telling you what you should do, what is the right thing to do, what does success look like to the general public, and blah, 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 blah. All of that stuff. I don't care about it. I don't listen to it. I don't tune into it. I just want you to know that I'm giving you permission to make different decisions in your life. And there's just one caveat that is required for you to get my permission, and that is that it feels like the right decision for you to make. If it feels aligned with who you are and what you want to create, there is no way that you will regret the decision. There's no way that nothing good will come from it. If you zoom out of your life, I was reading Annie Duke's book, Quit, which I've read a couple of Annie Duke's books and they're really good. And in Quit, there's a point where she's talking about, okay, when's the right time to stop doing something? That's essentially the premise of the book. And one thing she talks about is like taking a macro perspective. So she's like, okay, I made this hire for my business or I made this change in my life and immediately I don't see any change. If I zoom out and I take a bigger perspective view of everything, is this the right decision? Am I acting too hastily? And so the only point that I want to just share is the importance of zooming out and having a macro perspective view of your life. Because often when you make a different decision, initially, you're not going to see the benefits. It's like planting a seed. You don't plant a seed and then start complaining, where's the roots? Where are the branches? How come it hasn't showed up yet? You have to plant a seed, and sometimes like making the different decision is like planting a seed. And when you zoom out and you look at your life, connecting the dots backwards, then you'll see how it all makes sense and how it all was for you. But you have permission from me. I want you to know that you have permission from me to make different decisions, to be yourself, to go against the grain, to do what feels aligned for you. And just know that in doing that, living your true, authentic life, the universe will bend over backwards to make it happen for you. And secondly, as long as it's aligned with who you are and the type of person you want to be in the life that you want to live, just go for it, always. So now that the ground rules are out of the way, I'm just going to talk a little bit about myself and some of the different decisions that I've made and how they're different and why they're different. So I think with my career, we went over it. I'm a lawyer. I work online. My entire team is online. We've always been 100% online law firm. There's people who have worked for me for 3+ years who I've never met. And that's just because we're an online law firm and we work online, and so much of me wants to meet them and be with them and see them, but also that's not the design. So we stay very, very true. And we work with niches in different industries that typically lawyers don't pay attention to typically. So with my career, I think I explained a little bit about it. Second is that I'm 38 years old and I'm single. There you go. So it exists. It's a thing. And I grew up in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And I love my sister, Lauren. She's married and she has 2 wonderful kids, Rafi and Maya, my niece and nephew, who I love. And, my parents grew up in families where everyone has kids and had kids. And if I look at my 10 best friends from high school who I went to high school with, the guys who I grew up with, sort of the path that I was on, every single one of them are married and have kids. So what I'm doing is different. And that's it. How is it that I'm single? For a lot of years, it was really important for me to have my own experiences and travel the world and to have those sort of unfettered, uninhibited experiences. Freedom is one of the biggest values in my life. And I've been waiting to construct a relationship with true freedom at the core of the relationship, which I know is possible and I believe can and will happen. But just being single, like being 38 and single is, I've never been married. I've had a couple of girlfriends, but I've just been really content and happy and lived a dream life being single and being on my own and being very, very satisfied on my own. I have a dog named Gringo who I love. But I just share all of this is because I wouldn't say, and I know for females it's different in the sense of there being pressure, but even for me, I think it's like now I'm past the pressure point. I think everyone just expects me to do whatever I want to do. And, but definitely there were many years where it's like, when are you going to get a girlfriend? And then I look at my friends, I'm like, oh, should I be doing what they're doing? Like, everyone is buying a house near in the area where we grew up and they're all starting families and, sending their kids to certain schools. Is this what I should be doing? And the moment hasn't come yet where it felt right for me to do it. So I haven't done it. But I think that being single and, being single for so long, like not like, oh, I'm 38 and single and I was in a 7-year relationship, but like I've mostly been single for a long time. That's been a conscious choice. And so I think that's something that's different about me also. And I don't know. I don't know if it resonates with other people, but just letting you know, like, if that's what you want, that's okay. And you'll find the right person when you find the right person. But if it's important for you to have time on your own to be single, that's great as well. I usually travel alone. So that's another thing that's different about me. I've been to 97 countries. I don't know who's counting. No idea. But I've been to 97 countries, and probably of those, I've been to, let's say, 80 of them by myself. So I love to travel alone. One of the reasons why I love traveling alone is because I feel it breeds better and more authentic interactions with the environment around me. That's just my personal philosophy. So, for example, I was in Thailand with a girlfriend earlier this year, and I think in the 5 weeks that we were there, maybe I made 2 or 3 friends that weren't in a service role, like, oh, the awesome guy at the hotel, woo! Which is, look, it's great. We love, it's great to meet anyone in any capacity. But then if I compare that to, a trip that I took to, now I'm putting myself on the spot, like on a trip that I took by myself, oh God, to Kenya and Tanzania. When I went by myself, wow, just you meet everyone. I'm sleeping in some Maasai warrior's house in the middle of the desert. We're going on treks and following giraffe, tracking animals, and then I'm hiking and I'm meeting these people, and so I've almost always traveled alone or gone to visit a local friend when I go to travel. And to me, that's something that is different. It's not so common that people do that. And I'm not saying that any of this is right or better, but this is different. It is different to have that sort of lifestyle and approach. I speak 5 languages. I've learned 5 languages. I've taught myself 5 languages, and I continue to teach myself. And that's something that I've done differently too. And it's not, I think a lot of people maybe don't have the desire to learn different languages or to do what's required in order to learn those languages. But usually what's required is putting yourself in a position to be alone and not be around any English-speaking people. So I lived in Argentina for a long time. And when I lived there, I only hung out with Argentinians. I would not speak to anyone else who spoke English. And that's how I learned Spanish. And I went on a bus trip from Cordoba in Argentina up into Quito in Ecuador, everything by bus. I sort of looked Latino, didn't speak to anyone in English the whole way. And then by the end of the trip, I was fluent in Spanish. And so it's like a different approach and a different way to doing all of these things. My lifestyle is very different. My lifestyle of traveling around and living places. So in this past year, as an example, if I go through the different countries that I've visited, I've been to Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil, Jamaica, United States, Canada, Luxembourg, Germany, I lived in Belgium for 3 months, the Netherlands, France, Italy, North Macedonia, Bulgaria, Israel, Thailand, South Korea, and maybe I'm forgetting some. But that's all been in 2023. So I travel around a lot. I go to a lot of different places. That's something that I love doing. It's something that lights me up. But again, this is something different. A lot of people don't travel that much or have a lifestyle where they quickly decide to go, oh, cool, here's the ticket, I'm going here. I'm going to make this work. But that's the different lifestyle that I have that I love. And it's not something that a lot of other people do, but it's something that I do because that's what I love doing. And then lastly, when it comes to fitness, I have some different approaches of how I work on training. I'm currently in a kite surfing town. I did a Pilates teacher training early in the year. I've completed a yoga teacher training. And, I lift weights at the gym and I run and I do all sorts of different things, but I have a different approach to how I look at fitness and how I look at food. And again, these are other things. These are all of these different things that I've spoken about: career, being single, traveling, languages, lifestyle, fitness. These are things that if I asked other people, does it make sense to do this or should I do this before I did it? Most people would say no, or like, no, that's not a good idea, or don't do it, or whatever. But it really, for me, it started with career. And then once I built the confidence, it's just carried over into all these different areas of my life. So that's a little bit about me. I'm excited to continue this journey together. And most importantly, I hope that this is helpful, and I hope that it's interesting. And I hope that in me sharing, you see part of what's possible. And it's not about me. It's not about Cory. It's about a human being who has made different decisions, who continues to make different decisions. And the intention of doing so is to live a fulfilling and dream life, irrespective of other people's opinions of what I do. Maybe other people think what I do is cool. Maybe they think it's not cool. It's never mattered to me. I've always just, again, pulling that compass out of your chest, looking at, and does this resonate with me? Is this the person who I want to be? So my intention in closing is that this has been helpful for you. It's maybe put a couple of ideas in your mind about what different decisions that you want to make. And I hope you look forward to the next episode where we'll talk a little bit more about being different.